Vermilion Bird witnessed this scene, her heart filled with shock and doubt. This battle had not been easy for her either. The Mist Valley elite who had assaulted East Sea City were all captain-level figures. Unlike Liang Yu, who had obtained the Source of God and stood but a step away from breaking through the limits of life, she possessed no such advantage. Seeing all the Mist Valley warriors suddenly depart, everyone on the battlefield breathed a huge sigh of relief. The ground was now littered with corpses, all human warriors. As they left, the enemy had even taken the time to carry away the bodies of their fallen comrades. Rivers of blood flowed, mountains of bones piled high, a scene of brutal, unadulterated reality. Blood pooled ankle-deep beneath their feet. Vermilion Bird lifted her head cautiously, her gaze sweeping over them. Suddenly, a familiar figure caught her eye. Azure Dragon was being dragged away, restrained by telekinesis chains that bound him in black and white. Azure Dragon! Vermilion Bird roared in shock and fury, immediately preparing to flap her wings and pursue. But Black Tortoise's warning rang in her ears, "Vermilion Bird. Do you want to go and die?" Vermilion Bird's body jerked violently. Yes, she wanted to save him, but what could she do? Even Black Tortoise couldn't defeat that mysterious silver armor figure. The black and white armor warrior by his side had also demonstrated formidable strength. What could Vermilion Bird possibly use to save Azure Dragon now? Her face drained of color in an instant. She could only watch helplessly as Azure Dragon, his fate unknown, was taken away by the Mist Valley forces. They swiftly vanished into the night sky. Soon, their figures vanished entirely from sight. A deathly silence and profound sorrow descended upon East Sea City. They didn't know whether to grieve or feel fortunate. In this battle, 2/3 of East Sea City's elite forces had perished, and even Azure Dragon, one of the four spirits, had been abducted. But thankfully, those terrifying enemies had departed. Otherwise, even if East Sea City had held out, the vast majority of its warriors would have perished here. Vermilion Bird collapsed to the ground, utterly defeated. Yet moments later, she abruptly raised her head, her gaze hardening once more with resolve. There's no time for sorrow. East Sea City now faces a crisis that threatens its very existence. The apocalypse was cold and merciless. Enemies showed no mercy for your sorrow, they only struck while you were weak to finish you off. If you crumbled over the loss of a comrade, you were not a worthy warrior. Therefore, no matter how deep the grief, you must swallow your tears and keep fighting. The East Sea region lay in utter silence, a scene of utter devastation, the city littered with corpses. In the combat center, Li Guangxiao, the commander of the East Sea region, slumped back into his chair. His head bowed, his face contorted with an expression of profound grief. After this battle, the East Sea region had suffered severe damage. It was unclear how long it would take to retrain the vast number of warriors lost. Population itself was one of the most precious resources in this apocalyptic age. Moreover, their Epsilon Azure Dragon was suspected to have been killed by the enemy. This inflicted an unbearable loss upon the East Sea region. For a very long time to come, they would struggle to muster effective combat strength to counter the naval fleet of the oceanic overlord, Columbia. Yet he must rally his strength. Now was not the time for despondency. Mobilize personnel immediately to rescue the wounded. Order the medical units to prioritize treating the Black Tortoise, Vermilion Bird, and all mutants of captain rank or higher. Issue a citywide proclamation, "We have won the battle to defend East Sea City." Reassure the populace. Additionally, the damaged city walls must be repaired promptly. The bodies must be disposed of immediately to prevent the spread of disease. Also, keep a close watch on the surrounding seas to prevent anyone from taking advantage of the chaos. Li Guangxiao's demeanor instantly reassured his subordinates. They had been utterly despondent, their hearts nearly consumed by despair. But witnessing their commander calmly directing operations reignited their hope for the East Sea region's revival. "Yes, Commander. I'll dispatch personnel immediately." The officials around him perked up, immediately organizing post-battle maintenance efforts. Only when everything began operating in orderly fashion did Li Guangxiao sit back down in his chair. His hands braced his chin, his expression dark and ominous. If the Columbia Navy attacked at this moment, they would likely be unable to resist, facing utter annihilation. Just then, the secretary approached and delivered a report. Upon hearing the news, Li Guangxiao's eyes flickered with disbelief, a silver lining in this misfortune. The intelligence he received revealed that at the exact moment the East Sea region was attacked, Columbus Ocean Fleet stationed at Neon Harbor had also suffered a devastating assault from mysterious forces, incurring heavy casualties. Neon Harbor, the stronghold of Columbus Ocean Fleet. The vast harbor was now largely submerged beneath the sea. The colossal sea beast embodied by the Silver Armor General could unleash a tsunami with a single roar, engulfing the entire harbor. Cardalus could also manipulate seawater, but his ability level fell far short of Silver Armor's. Even relying on the might of Heavenly Dimensional Weapon and Space-Based Weapon to temporarily hold the line, they could only barely defend themselves. Victory was utterly beyond reach. As the battle raged on, Silver Armor had deciphered his abilities and grew increasingly ruthless in its assaults. This conflict had forced the Columbia Navy to exhaust its entire arsenal. For the first time since the apocalypse, they displayed their entire arsenal to the world. A spectrum of formidable anti-mutant missiles, 7th-generation White Eagle armed fighters, and formidable artillery batteries. All fear stems from insufficient firepower. While firearms see their effectiveness diminished against mutants, they are not rendered useless. Except for mutants like Zhang Yi, who possessed near-total immunity to most physical attacks, others remained vulnerable to high-caliber thermal weapons. This held true even for the underground civilization. In this battle, the Columbia Navy suffered heavier losses than the East Sea region. After all, colossal sea beasts could obliterate naval bases outright, reducing most warships to scrap metal sinking to the ocean floor. Chronologically, the Jiangnan region's battlefield erupted later. Almost simultaneously invaded, perhaps even slightly earlier, was the Northeast region. Compared to the East Sea region and the Columbia Naval Base, the Northeast region's battle situation was turned around by the National Protectorate Army's intervention, averting an imminent collapse. Han Shanzhua wisely withdrew, choosing to confront the Black and White Commander and other Green Armor warriors on his own. The main battlefield of Fengtian City was thus reserved for the commander of the National Protectorate Army, Qin Xuanba. The biting north wind howled, sweeping icy snow across the land. The air thickened with the pungent scent of blood, while corpses and the stench of death permeated every corner of Fengtian City. The man clad in a military overcoat concealed half his face beneath the brim of his cap, revealing only the lower half, a face carved with unyielding resolve. Opposite him, the Silver Armor warrior narrowed his eyes, gripping his massive sword as he stared intently at the man before him. He found it amusing that a human ability user dared to openly challenge him. But none of that mattered. Anyone standing before his blade must die. Let me grant you death. The Silver Armor warrior raised his blade, unleashing a terrifying surge of energy from his body. Even his armor couldn't conceal his imposing stature or muscles straining to burst free. Heavens fall. With the simplest motion, he hoisted the giant blade high, then brought it crashing down with brutal force. Boom! In an instant, a deafening roar split the air. The slash tore through the atmosphere with frenzied chaos, unleashing a colossal, deadly force that extended outward, aiming directly for Qin Xuanba's head. In the blink of an eye, Qin Xuanba lifted his head, revealing eyes sharp as swords beneath his military cap. Military Dao Killing Fist. Facing the Silver Armor warrior's assault, he neither dodged nor retreated. Instead, he drew his right arm back like a bowstring, then slammed his fist, clad in a black deerskin glove, into the surging energy before him. Wind Forest Volcano. As the fist struck out, a powerful vortex of energy erupted in a spiraling explosion, colliding midair with the Silver Armor warrior's attack. Boom! The collision of the two chi currents formed a massive vortex zone, like an artificial tornado, instantly obliterating everything in the surrounding area. Both men instantly realized the other was a being similar to themselves, an enhancement-type mutant. Enhancement-type mutants pursued the limits of the human body. They relentlessly tapped into their physical potential, seeking greater strength, sharper reflexes, faster speed, and impenetrable defense. Unlike other mutants, who heavily relied on their supernatural abilities, enhancement types possessed immense combat prowess even without any supernatural abilities. Like Liang Yu, the sheer force of their physical energy alone could split mountains and shatter rocks. If Liang Yu was a grandmaster among martial artists, then Chen Xuanba, who spent 16 years in the military, rising to battalion-level officer with nothing but his fists, and later became a lieutenant general in the post-apocalypse, was the grandmaster of the military. After exchanging a single blow with silver armor, Chen Xuanba hesitated not a moment. His form surged forward, charging straight at silver armor. Swift as the wind. His speed was blinding. His entire body blurred into a streaking light in the air, like a phantom. The silver-armored warrior's eyes strained to track his presence, only to suddenly sense a threatening aura sweeping in from his side. Without hesitation, he swung his massive battle blade, sweeping it out horizontally to his left. Chen Xuanba materialized beside him, unleashing a single, unadorned strike, the pure, killing force of the military Dao killing fist, slamming viciously into him. Brutal invasion. The fist struck the blade directly, a collision of the purest force. The fist slammed hard against the blade's edge, unleashing an invisible shockwave that erupted violently around them. The shockwave violently tore through the earth, pushing layer upon layer of soil to surge outward. In an instant, the ground beneath them sank dozens of meters, forming concentric shock zones radiating outward from their center. During this clash, the silver armor warrior actually stumbled back 3 steps. His pupils dilated in disbelief at this reality. I've actually been bested in a clash of raw power by a human? Physically, he was clearly 2 or 3 times Chen Xuanba's size. Moreover, he had honed his own strength to its absolute limit. Yet he had retreated 3 steps. Swift as thunder. Though Chen Xuanba had gained a slight advantage with that strike, his expression remained as cold as the eternal glaciers of the Arctic. Nothing but killing intent. Silver armor retreated 3 steps, and Chen Xuanba pressed forward, his movements within that split second so rapid they blurred the eye. Fast. Faster. His fists rained down like a violent storm, hammering relentlessly at silver armor's vital points. Each punch carried a chilling, bone-shaking intent to kill. The sheer velocity created unstoppable whirlwinds swirling around him. Silver armor's retreat of 3 steps proved fatal, throwing his balance off in the clash of their forces and costing him the initiative. Chen Xuanba's frenzied assault forced him into passive defense. A massive war blade was gripped in his hand, serving simultaneously as shield and weapon. He parried left and right, clashing blades with Chen Xuanba in his right hand while his left fist repeatedly collided with Chen Xuanba's. He refused to accept it. How could he possibly be outmatched in raw power? He must have underestimated his opponent, allowing carelessness to creep in. Whatever ground he'd lost, he would reclaim it tenfold. As elusive as shadow. Chen Xuanba uttered these words slowly. Chen Xuanba, whose form had previously fragmented into countless illusions, making it impossible for the silver armor to pinpoint his exact location, suddenly vanished into the surrounding endless darkness. Like a wisp of wind merging into the air. When he spread his arms wide, the silver armor suddenly realized the sky around him had grown dark. Everything vanished. The crumbling ruins disappeared. The warriors locked in brutal combat vanished. The entire city of Fengtian vanished. Only the hazy, twinkling stars filled the sky above. He saw Chen Xuanba's figure again. He was ahead, less than 100 meters from the silver armor warrior, walking toward him with fists clenched. A dark, supernatural energy coalesced upon his fists as he drew nearer, step by step. Silver armor gripped his giant blade tightly, his mind screaming to strike the figure before him in 2. Yet, though his heart raged with fury, his arms refused to lift. For though his eyes told him Chen Xuanba was there, his heart, his instincts, could not sense the man's presence. The Chen Xuanba before him seemed but a false phantom. No sound, no breath, not even a trace of killing intent toward him. Even Silver Armor himself did not know if the man before him truly was Qin Xuanba, or if someone hidden in the shadows was Qin Xuanba. Qin Xuanba stared at Silver Armor. In the split second of his hesitation, he closed the distance, both fists slamming straight towards Silver Armor's chest. By the time Silver Armor reacted, attempting to block with his battle blade, it was already too late. Everything seemed slow motion, yet for two Black Chariot-level mutants, the entire sequence unfolded in less than 0.01 seconds. The slightest hesitation meant defeat, or even death. Qin Xuanba's fists slammed directly into Silver Armor's chest. Snap! He heard the sound of bones shattering, perhaps accompanied by the cracking of the armor that symbolized Silver Armor's status as a war general. The chest of the Silver Armor caved in deeply. His armor shattered, revealing crimson flesh beneath. Boom! The Silver Armor warrior flew backward like a bullet, sent reeling by Qin Xuanba's two punches. Boom! Building after building shattered under the impact. Qin Xuanba's immense force propelled the Silver Armor warrior through countless skyscrapers, sending him hurtling over 10 kilometers away. The surrounding human soldiers watched the scene in panic. Unable to even attempt to dodge in time, they could only stare in stunned silence. Qin Xuanba crouched low, then launched upward like a rocket. His wide green military coat flapped wildly in the wind as he charged straight toward the Silver Armor. Boom! The Silver Armor crashed into a hillside before coming to a halt, his body deeply embedded in the earth. Qin Xuanba arrived immediately behind him. Plunging from above, his right fist clenched, a black supernatural coalesced into a blinding orb and slammed downwards. Xuanqiu, the Black Emperor among the 5 emperors. His greatest achievement was Jedi Heaven's force, blocking the passage between the mortal realm and the celestial realm, thus separating mortals from the divine. Qin Xuanba adopted Xuanqiu as his codename, and his power was Jedi Heaven's force. That is to say, a power capable of dissolving other powers. Any power struck by the black light in his hand would be shattered. Of course, beyond dissolving supernatural abilities, it could also dissolve human flesh. Boom! Qin Xuanba unleashed a punch directly at the location of the Silver Armor figure. As elusive as shadow. The black light transformed into a glowing orb and shot forward. In an instant, dozens of fissures erupted across the mountain's surface, and a piercing white light burst forth from within. Boom! The entire hill exploded. Silver Armor, blade in hand, burst through the mountain and soared upward. He stared intently at Qin Xuanba in the distance, his eyes burning with raw, unmasked murderous intent. Who would have thought that among humans, there exists someone like you? Qin Xuanba stared back coldly, his voice as icy as a northeast winter. I never imagined you'd survive a direct hit from my wind forest volcano. Die! The Silver Armor warrior, blade in hand, tensed his bulging biceps and swung down with brutal force. A terrifying shockwave erupted, forcing the surrounding storms to roar backward as the earth shattered with a thunderous crash. Half an hour later, Qin Xuanba and the Silver Armor had battled fiercely for a long time. Both possessed incredibly formidable physiques, with both strength and defense pushed to their absolute limits. Initially, Qin Xuanba seized the advantage by exploiting the Silver Armor's misjudgment of him. But killing an enhanced type ability user of comparable strength was no simple feat. Once enhanced type mutants reached the Black Chariot level, both their physical defenses and self-healing abilities became terrifyingly formidable. Qin Xuanba unleashed his lethal military Dao killing fist technique from the outset, nearly piercing Silver Armor's chest. Yet Silver Armor fully restored his injuries in under a minute. These two combatants, like colossal humanoid beasts, engaged in a brutal, close-quarters battle across Fengtian City. By now, both bore over 100 wounds, many striking vital areas. Yet despite such catastrophic injuries, Qin Xuanba stood firmly planted on the ground, his gaze as sharp as a sword fixed on Silver Armor. Boom! The distant battle raged on, Hanshanzhua leading the mighty Tiger Guard in fierce combat against the Mist Valley warriors. The Silver Armor warrior stared at the man before him, letting out a low, muffled grunt. Looks like capturing this city is no longer feasible. He glanced up at the sky, then turned his gaze back to Qin Xuanba. Extending his thick right arm, he pointed his sharp clawed fingers at the warrior. You're impressive. You've shown me that humans in this world are far stronger than I ever imagined. A cold smile curled the corners of Qin Xuanba's mouth. The battle isn't over yet. Only when you die by my hand will you truly understand my strength. Black light flared once more from his clenched fists. Against enhancement-type mutants, the power of Cease War proved relatively less effective, yet its corrosive effect on flesh remained equally terrifying. Let's call it a day for now. Unexpectedly, Silver Armor spoke these words. Qin Xuanba frowned, unsure of Silver Armor's intentions. Human, I remember you. We will meet again. Leaving these words behind, Silver Armor fixed a deep gaze upon Qin Xuanba, as if etching the man's features into his memory. Then, with a sudden surge, he soared skyward, vanishing into the distance. Simultaneously, the entire Mist Valley force seemed to receive some unspoken command, withdrawing from the battlefield in unison. Carrying the bodies of their fallen comrades, they followed Silver Armor's path into the heavens. Black and White Commander gazed at Han Shanzhua before him and declared, "You're lucky this time. But next time, you won't be so fortunate. The time I've given you is running out." Black and White Commander's words carried a peculiar weight, but Han Shanzhua, already exhausted, had no time to ponder their meaning. For had it not been for the sudden intervention of the National Protectorate Army, Fengtian City would have been utterly annihilated by now. Even as the Mist Valley forces withdrew, they remained remarkably composed. In stark contrast, the streets of Fengtian City were littered with the corpses of human soldiers. Han Shanzhua stood in the biting wind, gazing up at the sky. He slowly closed his eyes, his face contorted as he cursed, "What the hell?" On the other side, Qin Xuanba watched the receding Mist Valley troops, his gaze as sharp as a drawn military sword. Compared to Han Shanzhua's anguish, his eyes held more fury. But he chose not to pursue them, for the battered city of Fengtian could not withstand another blow. His duty as reinforcements had been fulfilled. A soldier rushed over, draping a military overcoat over his shoulders. Qin Xuanba pulled his wide-brimmed cap low over his eyes and declared in a deep voice, "Sooner or later, I'll march right into your lair. I'll wipe every last one of you out." Officers from the command center hurried over, expressing their sincere gratitude to Qin Xuanba. "Your Excellency Xuanqiu, we are profoundly grateful for your support. Please follow me, Commander Ji wishes to personally thank you." Facing the Northeast Region officers' deference, Qin Xuanba waved them off coldly. "Spare me the meaningless formalities. You'll have plenty to attend to next, and we must return to the borderline without delay." With that, he led his National Protectorate Army past the officers of the Northeast Region and walked forward. The roar of engines filled the sky as a F-12 armed helicopter hovered before him. Qin Xuanba stepped aboard and departed without looking back. News from all regions continued pouring into the Shinjang region. Across the entire Huashu Kingdom, all four major regions, except for the Southwest and Xinjiang regions, had suffered severe assaults. Xinjiang's high command, including the two elite combatants Ho Tu and Xidagarba King, remained on high alert throughout the night, daring not to let their guard down. The Mist Valley forces' lightning-fast advance meant they could very well strike Xinjiang City by surprise. Heavy snow fell. Snowflakes drifted down like goose feathers. Outside the Earth God's temple, the snow had already piled over a meter deep. Tomorrow, clearing this vast plaza would take considerable time. Guanlongyue stood outside the temple gates, clad in a black cloak. Thanks to the combat suit beneath, she felt no chill from the -80 degrees Celsius temperature outside. Her jet-black eyes held no warmth, an unfathomable, bottomless darkness that seemed to stare back at no one. She stood there silently, as if awaiting something. Beside her, no guards were present. Only a tall, straight-backed young man in white robes stood there, Xidagarba King Shangdaowen. The two waited beneath the eaves of the Earth God's temple for a long time amidst the blowing snow. Guanlongyue spoke slowly, "Why haven't they appeared yet?" "East Sea, northeast, northwest, Jiangnan. 4 major regions were attacked in succession. If their goal is to overthrow Huashu Kingdom, then this place should be their first target. Shang Daowen furrowed his brow slightly. His features were as sharp and cold as a sword. Yet, whenever he was near Guanlongyue, the corners of his mouth always held a faint, almost imperceptible smile. Following Guanlongyue's gaze, he scanned the square ahead. In his mind, every movement within the Earth God's temple, indeed throughout the entire inner city of Shinjang, was under his command. Perhaps, he murmured, they've grown afraid. Northwest Region. The silver armor commander responsible for the assault here was a user of smoke manipulation abilities. Using smoke that blanketed the entire city, he killed nearly half of Chang'an City's soldiers within a mere half hour. Yet the death toll among ordinary humans remained contained. For in this era, underground shelters existed not only in Tianhai City but in every major metropolis. The Northwest region, situated in the innermost region of Huashu Kingdom, had sufficient time to prepare before the assault. Thus, the vast majority of ordinary humans had retreated underground, preventing mass casualties. Even now, those cities outside had been devastated beyond recognition in the war against the mutant. If the Northwest region could hold its ground in this battle, rebuilding the cities would not be an insurmountable task with current technology. Silver Armor stormed into the command center where Li Changgong was stationed, intent on a direct decapitation strike. What he hadn't anticipated was that Li Changgong had already made preparations, evacuating the entire command center building beforehand. Moreover, he detonated all the explosives planted within the command center. It was a directional blast triggered from the ground upward, its power terrifying, yet the shockwave barely affected the surrounding areas. Li Changgong, who had activated 6 realms without distance, now stood atop a skyscraper several kilometers away from the building, his eyes gleaming with the certainty of victory. As a man with a military background, he was perpetually prepared for combat. To breach his military formation and slash him? Not so easily. Silver Armor likely had no idea that since taking command of the Northwest region, he had faced no fewer than 10 assassination attempts and military coups by resistance factions. Now, he was the kind of man who slept with his long sword within arm's reach. Li Changgong gripped his long sword tightly, baring teeth as cold as ice. His ability index stood at merely 18,000, white chariot level. But a true warrior never placed blind faith in ability index alone. He held the advantage of timing, the advantage of location, and the advantage of manpower. He held both timing and location in his grasp. Chang'an City was his turf. Here, even against a black charioteer mutant, he possessed the confidence to face them head-on. For he was the Northwest King, everything here could be harnessed to his will. The command center building lay utterly destroyed, engulfed in raging flames. The intense heat raised the temperature across the entire city sky. Even the city's outermost districts felt the blessing of thermal radiation. Amid the raging inferno, a twisted, dark silhouette slowly materialized. Silver Armor coalesced from swirling black smoke into human form, emerging from the towering flames. Floating angrily in the air, half his form was in the form of smoke, ready to dissolve into smoke and evade any attack. Even existing as smoke allowed him to evade much physical harm, but an explosion comparable to a miniature Reaper of Love still left him gravely wounded. Any carbon-based life form, except for monsters like Zhang Yi who could directly use Void World Departure, could not ignore the impact of the most powerful weapon in human history. I did underestimate you, human. The Silver Armor figure spoke in a deep voice. But this ambush tactic can only be used once. He likely never imagined Li Changgong would transform his stronghold into a volcanic crater, rendering this attack utterly unforeseeable. Yet, despite sustaining significant injuries from his carelessness, he remained confident in eliminating Li Changgong. As the Silver Armor General of the Wuluan Empire, his power far surpassed Li Changgong's. He extended his right hand toward Li Changgong and murmured, "Smoke slash." A torrent of black smoke surged from his palm, coalescing in midair into a colossal smoke beam. Boom! The black smoke shattered explosively in an instant. Countless smoke fragments, now twisted into irregular, razor-sharp blades, shot violently toward Li Changgong. Streams of smoke shot toward Li Changgong with blinding speed, sweeping through the surroundings like migrating birds in a twisting, spiraling assault. The massive smoke screen swept past the surrounding skyscrapers, slicing through them like a blade cutting paper, silently slashing the buildings clean in half. The power contained within those gossamer thin wisps of smoke was staggering. Even Li Changgong, his smile now vanishing from his lips, had to focus entirely on confronting this enemy. The Black Chariot, gravely wounded, but still the Black Chariot. I am heaven's will. Facing the black smoke assaulting him from all sides, Li Changgong drew his blades. Two long swords, enhanced by Xiao Liu's metal frenzy, were treasures that rivaled Liang Yu's dragon's roar. Clang! Li Changgong's strike was blindingly fast, so swift it defied perception. Back in his battle against Zhang Yi, the mere motion of his sword had sent a stinging pain across Zhang Yi's skin. The power of I am heaven's will instantly cleaved through every smoke attack hurled at him. Ignoring all, severing all. This is the might of I am heaven's will. In the blink of an eye, Li Changgong's swords flashed countless times, parrying every assault directed at him. Yet after being cleaved apart, the smoke fragments coalesced once more into a shroud. The silver armor figure took on a semi-gaseous form as he slowly ascended into the sky. His right hand manipulated vast quantities of black smoke, which rose from all directions around Li Changgong like four colossal walls. Northwest region's Li Changgong possesses an absolute attack that ignores all physical defenses. But its weakness lies in limited range and a focus on single target strikes. Therefore, we simply need to create distance and continuously launch attacks using smoke slash. Li Changgong's ability is an extremely dangerous space ability. When considering purely in terms of space ability, the danger level of his power even surpasses Zhang Yi's. After all, this is a guy who maximizes his offensive output. Zhang Yi once gave Li Changgong an assessment: given the right opportunity, any mutant, regardless of how much higher their ability index might be, could fall to his twin swords. Were it not for his own ability, everything follows the trail, Zhang Yi would absolutely refuse to come near him under any circumstances. Silver Armor was well aware of this fact. Therefore, his immediate reaction was to create distance from Li Changgong, then use smoke to slowly wear him down. For a dual sword fighter, no matter how swift his strikes, he could never slash through every last wisp of smoke. Silver Armor soared into the air, and Li Changgong instantly grasped his opponent's intent. He must slay the opponent's true body to win this battle. You think you can leave? Did you ask me? Li Changgong stepped forward, instantly activating 6 realms without distance, as he shot skyward. The silver armor figure swept his massive hand, causing vast black smoke to coalesce once more. Countless black smoke screens surged forth toward him. Each smoke screen shifted shape, finally slicing apart the entire space between him and Li Changgong. Li Changgong dared not activate his abilities lightly, otherwise, his body might be sliced apart mid-teleportation. Wielding twin swords, Li Changgong slashed furiously, shattering every incoming smoke screen before him. But silver armor had already soared high into the sky, maintaining a distance of thousands of meters. From his lofty vantage point, he raised both hands toward the sky. Rise, black smoke! In an instant, vast plumes of black smoke billowed from every district of Chang'an City. Within 10 seconds, the entire city was shrouded in darkness. This was the black smoke silver armor had planted in advance. It could multiply by feeding off living bodies. Now, summoned by silver armor, it surged toward this area, seemingly slow, yet moving with blinding speed. Massive amounts of black smoke converged on the city center, the battlefield between silver armor and Li Changgong. The thick smoke even severely impaired Li Changgong's vision. Silver armor vanished into the fog, his trail quickly lost. Whoosh! One fierce attack after another struck Li Changgong from every possible angle. Shielded by the thick smoke, silver armor's assaults grew increasingly difficult to defend against. Li Changgong held his breath, focused, showing no panic. He swung his sword backwards several times. The gleaming steel sliced through the air, directly shattering the silver armor's offensive. But how long can you hold out? This place, at this moment, is already my domain. Just surrender quietly. You have no ability to block my attacks. The silver armor's voice echoed faintly from all directions. He lurked within the shadows, unhurried and patient, like a hunter biding his time. Yet upon hearing these words, Li Changgong burst into laughter, a hearty, unrestrained laugh. Ha ha ha. The silver armor's brow furrowed. What are you laughing at? Li Changgong roared, I just heard a hilarious joke, couldn't help myself. His gaze sharpened as he sneered, you claim this place is your domain? Who gave you the audacity to be so arrogant? He spread his arms wide, two gleaming swords radiating a chilling white light. In this entire northwest region, within Chang'an City itself, only I, Li Changgong, reign as the absolute sovereign. This place? It's my turf. I know my own weaknesses, no one needs to point them out. So if you plan to target me, do you think I haven't prepared? Li Changgong roared with laughter. Sirius, activate. The intelligent voice of the Sirius battle armor echoed in his ears, affirmative. In the next instant, silent shockwaves erupted from the numerous firing ports across Li Changgong's armor, rapidly spreading in all directions. The black smoke enveloping him began to dissipate rapidly, like snow melting under the sun. Li Changgong's early life had been smooth sailing, devoid of any significant setbacks. Even after joining the military, his rise through the ranks was uninterrupted. After the apocalypse, his extraordinary talent propelled him to the position of commander of the Northwest region through sheer force. This unbroken streak of success lasted until he arrived in the Shinjang region and encountered a man named Zhang Yi. His defeat in the confrontation with Zhang Yi marked the first major setback of his life. Later, when he ventured into the underground of the Qinling Mountains and had his arms severed by the Earth Centipede King, it became the second major blow he suffered. After returning from Shinjang, he began to reflect on his own abilities. He was indeed strong, but his weaknesses were glaringly obvious. His attack range was limited, relying primarily on close-quarters combat. He would be at a disadvantage against enemies possessing powerful long-range attack methods. He was biased towards single-target attacks. Originally, he compensated for this with his attack speed, enabling him to swiftly eliminate groups. Yet against those wielding special abilities, his strength remained difficult to unleash. Take, for instance, illusion techniques. Or Zhang Yi's Lord of War. Similarly, these were all long-range attacks with vast coverage, impossible to effectively counter. Extending this logic encompassed smoke, light, fire, pure supernatural attacks, and so on. Truly elite mutants are never easy to deal with, each has survived the apocalypse's brutal selection process. Thus, any oversight could become the spark that ignites their demise. Li Changgong immediately conceived a method to compensate for his weakness. The Sirius armor was forged precisely for this purpose, using high-energy particle pulses to counter such wide-area energy attacks. Whether it was plasma-like flames, storms or tsunamis triggered by supernatural abilities, or even mist-like toxins and miasmas like those of silver armor. By releasing high-energy particle pulses, these attack methods could be forcibly dispersed. Silver armor hadn't anticipated Li Changgong's countermeasure. Hidden within the smoke, his form began to destabilize, showing signs of disintegration. What? He stared in shock at his palm as the smoke dissipated. In desperation, he immediately dissolved his smoke form. Transforming into smoke wasn't without limitations. After all, reducing his body to particles meant his defenses were significantly weakened. This was precisely why Li Changgong had managed to severely wound him by detonating the command center. Becoming smoke particles didn't grant invincibility, it merely allowed his body to fragment into countless particles, making him harder to kill. Around Li Changgong, the smoke cleared. He hovered mid-air using Sirius's flight device, facing off against the silver armor who had materialized. Heh. Now, your abilities are useless, aren't they? Li Changgong raised his long sword, pointing it at the silver armor. Silver armor, gazed silently at Li Changgong. Surprisingly, he also let out a light chuckle, addressing him in Huashu language. Interesting. You truly are a fascinating human. As he spoke this, a hint of wistfulness flickered in his eyes. Being too clever isn't necessarily a good thing. It might just be the beginning of one's downfall. Li Changgong frowned. What nonsense are you spouting? I don't understand. But now, it's my turn to cut you down. Swish, 6 realms without distance activated instantly. Li Changgong shot towards Silver Armor through the air, his long sword slashing out from afar. An attack that defied all physical laws forced Silver Armor to snap out of his recollections. His form flickered through the air, evading the lethal strike. Li Changgong was taken aback. He hadn't expected Silver Armor to move this swiftly even without assuming his mist form, let alone dodge his attack. The gap between us isn't something such petty tricks can bridge. The Silver Armor's voice rang out, cold and icy. What you can affect is only that scattered mist. But the smoke within my body isn't so easily shattered by you. He opened his mouth, spewing forth a thick plume of black smoke that swiftly filled the air. Li Changgong's gleaming sword sliced through the sky, only to be deftly evaded by the smoke once more. As long as I avoid the direction your sword points, your threat is practically negligible. The Silver Armor figure's tone was calm, yet Li Changgong sensed a thick layer of sarcasm. Gritting his teeth, he declared, then we'll see who's faster, you or me. Behind the Silver Armor, the black smoke coalesced into 6 massive wings. Like a fallen dark angel descending to earth, he laughed wildly as he streaked through the air at blinding speed. Li Changgong, blade in hand, teleported instantly to meet the attack, raising his sword to slash. The black smoke evaded his blow, then manipulated the surrounding darkness into barbed spikes, razor-sharp blades, and spiraling blades to assault him. He no longer maintained his mist form, but if Li Changgong continued countering the scattered smoke with the pulsing energy of his serious armor, it would only delay his offensive rhythm at best.